So which resources are going to be scarce? And what are the alternatives to the resources? As we said, economics is a study about how society manages its scarce resources and their alternative uses. So this is our first glimpse into this scarce resources and their alternatives. Time. Time is a scarce resource. There's only 24 hours during the day. So we can't have all the time in the world we want to. We have to decide about the best, most effective use of our time. How do we do that? Sometimes we have to give up something else in order to get some time. So for example, we can sacrifice some money in order to get some time. So money is an alternative to time. What can be an example of that? Well, I can shop online and pay money for the delivery charges in order to save some time. I'm paying money in order for the goods to be delivered to my door so I don't have to spend time shopping at the store. So that way we're sacrificing money to get time. Money is a scarce resource as well. Interestingly enough, sometimes we sacrifice time to get money. So if we're limited in money more than we are in time, we do the opposite. How do we sacrifice time to get money? We may spend half an hour clipping coupons in order to save some money. So time is once again an alternative to money. Skills is a scarce resource. We can't have all of the skills in the world even if we wanted to. So we may sacrifice both time and money to get some skilled work. How do we sacrifice time? We can actually spend time learning a certain skill. I can spend some time to learn how to garden, right? So I'm getting some skills and I'm giving up time. At the same time, I can give up money in order to get some skills. I can actually pay somebody to take care of my garden. So I'm sacrificing money in order to get some skilled work. A couple of other things, basics about economics. In general, we can divide all the economic subjects into two broad categories, micro and macro category. There's more other categories like international economics, labor economics, public economics, but most used distinction between those two topics are going to be micro and macro. Microeconomics will study how individuals, households, firms make decisions and interact with one another in markets. Macroeconomics will study economy as a whole. So whenever we concentrate on some smaller decisions, or maybe not necessarily smaller decisions, but the decisions that affect a particular group of people or particular group of companies, particular industry, we're talking about microeconomic issue. When we don't make a separation between groups of people or businesses, then we talk about macroeconomics. Here are some examples of micro versus macro questions. When I'm making a decision to go to the business school or take a job, that's a micro decision. If we talk about economy overall and we're trying to see how many people are employed in the economy as a whole, that will be a macroeconomic decision. What determines salary offered by Citibank? That's a micro decision. We're talking about particular industry. What determines the overall salary level paid to workers in a given year? That's a macro decisions. So here we're not separating workers on blue collar, white collar, we're not separating them by industry. Even though we're talking about one particular year, it's still going to be a macro decision because we'll look at the economy overall. What determines the cost of university or college? A micro question, so particular industry. What determines overall price level in the economy? That's a macro decision. So we're talking about prices in general, all the prices combined, or most of the prices combined, not specific goods or services. What government policies should be adopted to make it easier for low-income students to attend college? Micro question. We're talking about low-income students. So that's a micro decision. What government policies should be adopted to promote full employment Here we're not separating into any categories. So full employment, overall employment level in a country, that's a macro question. Let's talk about economists and their roles. We say that economists play two different roles. Economists can play a role of scientists, those who try to explain the world, and those scientists will make positive statements which attempt to describe the world as it is. Those scientists usually work at universities. They do research that tries to explain the world, looks at some maybe causal relationship between one thing and another thing. What causes what, and how one thing turns into another, and whether one thing leads to another. So those scientists will make positive statements. How things work, that's what will be described by scientists in positive statement. Policy advisors, those who work in Washington D.C. or any other state and work as policy advisors. Policy advisors will try to improve existing policies. They will make normative statements which will attempt to prescribe how the world should be. What do we need to change in order to change things, hopefully for better? So positive statements can be confirmed or refuted. Normative statements cannot. So this tells us that positive statement not necessarily has to be true. The sky is green is a positive statement. We can prove it wrong, yet it's still a positive statement. Okay? The sky is prettier when there are clouds. That's a normative statement. That's a statement that expresses my opinion. We may disagree about that opinion. We can't really prove it right or wrong because we're simply expressing our beliefs into what is better and what is not. Let's look at some examples of positive and normative statements and see whether or not we can differentiate them. Prices increase when government increases the quantity of money. So this statement is positive. One thing causes another thing. This statement is actually correct. We'll see later on that in fact will happen. But here we're just describing how one thing causes another thing. That's a positive statement. The government should print less money. The key word here is should. This word tells me that I am expressing an opinion. Should the government really print money? Should the government print less money? Well, that's a matter of opinion. So we're not really saying anything else but just saying how we think the world should act. A tax cut is needed to stimulate the economy. Here the key word is needed. So with that word needed, it tells us that we are once again expressing our opinion. We're saying this one thing is needed to cause the other thing. So is tax cut really needed to stimulate the economy? Well, we don't know. There are other ways to stimulate the economy. If we have said a tax cut will stimulate the economy, that would have been a positive statement. But because we're saying is needed, we make our own prescription. That makes it a normative statement. Increase in the price of burritos will cause an increase in consumer demand for music downloads. Positive statement. One thing is causing another thing. So this is a positive statement. No matter how ridiculous it sounds, it doesn't matter. It's a positive statement.